Back in the book segment tonight, as you may have heard, some students in California went wild when they found out they'd have to pay higher tuition.
This chalk represents everyone's struggles. That spray paint represents us, united.
All right, the irony here is that some of those students want America to be an entitlement society, but when the money runs out, as it has in California, they run amok. Joining us from Washington, Fox News political analyst Charles Krauthammer. So, Charles, how bad do you think the entitlement society in America is right now and is going to get?
Well, judging from those young people who appear rather agitated that they are not having their college education subsidized enough, I say it's getting out of control. Because remember, who pays the taxes that supports their college education? 3/4 of Americans have no college degree. I think the answer to your question is a little bit complex. I think the majority of Americans don't want to give up the entitlements they already have, but I think the majority of Americans don't want to add on to it and to become like a European social democratic society.
Now, why is that? Because the taxes then rise so high that individual achievement is robbed and that the American dream shrinks because you just don't have the cash to do it because you're giving the government the cash. Is that the reason?
That is the reason, and what we had was a spontaneous uprising, if you like, a peaceful one, of course, in the U.S. The Tea Parties, the town hall meetings of last year, the Massachusetts election, which all said very loud and clear, yes, we like our Social Security, but we are not going to add on to it with a new health care entitlement. We know we're going over a cliff with taxes and debt, and as a result, we want to stay where we are, stay Americans with some protections. We're not going to get rid of the New Deal or even the Great Society of Medicare, but no new stuff.
Okay,
and that's what the fight over health care is all about.
It is. It is about that and smaller and versus larger government. However, the younger people that we saw out in California, they have a different view. When you look at the polling again about health care, the younger the American is, the more likely they are to support it. So that tells me that the new generation wants the government to be a nanny state.
Except that the new generation is going to get older, and they're going to have a family, they're going to have kids, they're going to have payments, they're going to have a mortgage, they're going to pay taxes, and they won't like the taxes. Those kids out there are not paying a lot of taxes, and as they become adults, they are not going to have the same political attitudes as they have at 18 when you're wild, you're free and subsidized.
Why do you think people in Scandinavia, who are just about the same as Americans, as you know, Scandinavians come here, there's no difference basically, why do you think they want the nanny state in places like Sweden, not Norway so much, but Denmark, Sweden, France? Why? France is in Scandinavia, but what is the mentality that the Western Europeans have that they want to be taken care of?
Well, remember, they're not the same as us because it was the more independent ones, the ones who didn't like the strictures of government, the regulations, the religious oppression, who came here. This spirit of being independent and not wanting to be controlled by the government is something that is intrinsic in America. It's the essence of America, and it's what distinguishes Americans, who are essentially refugees of the old society in Europe. That's why it's always been harder to make Americans break to the yoke of government as happened in Europe. Look, once you get accustomed to the kind of entitlements that you have in Sweden, England, France, elsewhere, it doesn't get undone. And America is different. It's resisting the imposition of new yokes, and that's what's happening today.
All right, Charles, thanks very much as always. Pinheads and Patriots on deck.